All right. Hello, and welcome to the Intelligence Mod Pod Session 7. Today we're going to be talking about magic and how it's used and how it works. Today, again, I have Royal with me because he is my designated co host when no one else is available for me. How are you today?
I'm doing all right. Yep. If it needs to get done, everybody just doesn't feel, I guess, I think they feel maybe a little intimidated talking about rules and getting it wrong. But I'm here to just say, fuck it, let's go.
Right? Right, because again, a big part of the message here, it's okay to be wrong. That's
Yeah,
part of D&D, you're gonna be wrong. Now,
gonna
Royal,
be
do you
wrong.
play a lot of casters? Is magic something you do a lot of?
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I am typically a sorcerer. Sorcerers are probably my go-to class. And if I don't, I'm usually playing something with spell slots, cleric or something.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think I've ever played a character that doesn't have spell slots. You know, the closest I got was playing as a rogue, or not a rogue, a ranger, but I played like a full wisdom ranger. So it was like still predominantly a spellcaster. Bards and druids are my favorite. Druid is my all-time favorite, even though I hate wild shape. But we'll get into that when we get to druids. So both of us, we love magic. How do you feel about the magic system for Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition?
It could be better.
Yeah, good.
It's not the worst, but it ain't good either. It's very confusing understanding like spell slots beginnings when you get them, preparing, unprepared, learn, unlearned, and then there's the redheaded stepchild of wizard who just goes, I can take everything, and this is how, and then you go, those are some weird ass rules. You know,
That's the truth. Wizards really do just get to do whatever they want, but they also have no health points, so literally a leaf falls off of a tree and hits them in the face, and they're probably going to need a cure wounds to get back up. So, a little bit of a trade. With that, as we go into this episode, and if you are a very, very new player looking to play a spellcaster, please understand that D&D spellcasting is tricky. Understanding spell slots does take a minute. Do not think this is going to be something that just like immediately switches in your mind, and if it does, good for you. But it is okay for this to take a minute. I have been absolutely, as a DM who teaches, I have been dreading doing this episode because I feel like explaining spell slots the way that 5th edition does them is confusing. It's hard. It's not super easy to explain. But we're going to get into it and do our absolute best so that you are prepared and you know what to do so you can go be that wizard, even though I would never recommend a new player play a wizard. But if you really want to, go for it. Challenge yourself. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about all of the schools of magic, just so you can familiarize yourself with kind of what the general shtick of all of the magic is. Today we're not really going to go in like into depth about each and every spell in the game because there's so many of them. There will be a time and a place for that. We will eventually get there, but this isn't it yet. There's still so many things that we would rather go over, so we're going to start with that. So the first one we
yeah.
have is abjuration. Now, abjuration prevents or reverses harmful spells. This is going to be shields, healings, counter spells, banishments. If you're looking to play a support-oriented character, odds are abjuration is going to be your bread and butter. I know as Maraway, as pretty much any healer I've ever played, abjuration is pretty much. I have like 3 of these that I use, and that's about it.
Yep. Abjuration is good. Also, they could be um glyphs of warding and stuff like that. So to be careful because they do the damage too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, there are a couple of abjuration spells that do damage, but I would like to say that they're generally more on the defensive side of things.
they
It's
are.
still going to have to be something that someone else is triggering, not necessarily you just pointing your finger and blowing them up. Like it's going to be like
Correct.
I put a ward here, if someone steps on it, rest in
Goes
peace.
boom. Yeah,
Cuz abjuration damage also doesn't mess around. It hits hard.
it is hard.
The next one we have is conjuration. So conjuration, a lot of people would think it's like just summoning, like you're conjuring things, but that's not necessarily the case. There is a lot of summoning in conjuration, but this is also teleporting creatures and objects. I find the most use you're going to see of conjuration is going to be teleporting, because summoning really isn't a thing that a lot of players do because it's a lot of upkeep on multiple different stat blocks. So at Maraway is I have 15 different stat blocks on my character sheet at any given time. That's not for everyone. But Misty Step is for everyone. If you can get it, get it.
Misty Step is for everyone, yeah.
Misty Step is rated E for everyone.
Get that extra 30 feet of teleportation as a bonus action, everybody. You'll need it at some point.
This also can be used to like create food and water. So you can create things that aren't combat oriented. We love that. I feel like one of us needs to get that purely for Boola's sake. I feel like she would really enjoy one of us being able to conjure her infinite food.
Yeah, but it's going to be terrible food.
Not if you mix spices. It with prestidigitation, right, which can flavor food. There are workarounds, people. If your food is bad tasting, prestidigitation. Also, I just realized I had intended on not saying that spell for quite some time, because I know as a DM, one of my favorite things with new players is hearing them say that spell for the first time, because it's always the funniest thing. Just go for it, people. Trust me, if people laugh, they're not laughing at you. Nobody pronounced that spell correctly when they first played this game. No. Nobody.
Prestidigitation.
Yeah, no, it's there are people who have been playing for a long time who still cannot say it. I feel like if you watch Critical Role, I don't remember who, but I feel like one of them gets made fun of every time they say prestidigitation. I feel like it's oh shit, I forgot her name. She plays oh my god, I forgot her name. How did I... Keyleth.
Oh, so you're talking about Marisha Ray.
Marisha, oh my god, I'm so upset with myself. Yeah, I feel like it's her that every time she pronounces it, they make fun of her. Or it might have been like a thing for like season 1 or something. I don't remember. But seasoned people cannot pronounce that spell. Do not get upset if you can't. Back to Conjuration, though. You can also summon things that are damaging. So a lot of people would think that like summoning lightning would not necessarily be in Conjuration, that it would be in a different one, but there's a lovely spell called Call Lightning where you are literally summoning a lightning storm. Create Bonfire, which a lot of people would argue isn't that great of a spell, but I would argue against them. I think Create Bonfire is one of the best cantrips in the game. I use it every chance I get. I feel like I used it very effectively in episode 1 of our campaign against the flail snails. Get it. It's super good, even if people make fun of you. What are your overall thoughts about Conjuration?
My overall take on Conjuration, obviously, as a spellcaster, there are a few Conjuration spells that I really enjoy. I don't want to. This is a spot that could be wrong, but I think like Wall of Fire or I think is also Conjuration, because you have nothing. I want to say it is. I don't have the book in front of me.
Wall of Fire is not Conjuration.
See, I'm wrong, guys. It can be done. Which I don't
However, its cousin spell, Wall of Thorns, is Conjuration. Riddle me that.
Yeah, and I'm, like Wall of Stone. Is that also just not Wall of Light?
Wall of Stone is evocation. The only wall spell that is not evocation is Thorns. So if you want to build a wall, I know Conjuration isn't for you. You can conjure many, many things, but walls are not one of them.
Walls, apparently those are evocation. I guess, yeah. I feel like those are both the same, but again, like I said, I don't know all the spells by the back of my hand. But Conjuration is good. Yeah, summon food, deal with that, and then being able to summon other different types of useful objects is good for your party.
Yeah,
Can
and
be good.
something I want to talk about for this is kind of a mixture of abjuration and conjuration talk is healing in Dungeons and Dragons. If you are using 2014 player handbook, healing is you are never going to be able to out heal the damage that your enemies are doing, right? So like if you're thinking of being like that, like MMORPG healer where you're just always got everyone topped off, it's not sustainable. It's not something you can really do. I think in the new rules, it's a little bit more sustainable because they doubled all of the healing. But even still, one thing to consider with conjuration is that if you are wanting to play a support character who's a healer, having a bit of conjuration isn't a bad thing because when you really get down to looking at the numbers of things, if you summon a bear with 45 health, right, or whatever health it has, and it is taking all this damage, that is 45 damage that you are not healing on someone else. So you can almost look at it as 45 damage of healing without anyone actually being at risk. So sometimes putting up meat shields is the perfect way to mitigate damage before it happens. You'll see a lot if you watch our stream with Maraway. That's my whole character is I've got all these companions that I throw out into the fight so I don't have to waste all my spell slots healing because then I'm, one, keeping damage from happening to people, two, I'm doing damage, and I don't think there's a third one, but I had already started my finger at that point.
They all look adorable.
They look adorable. Yes. Conjuration is a support magic, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. The next one is probably my favorite school of magic, even just because it's never used, but it's divination.
It's never used. Yep.
I built an entire spirit bard purely off divination before. I had no combat ability, but it was just divination everywhere, and it was one of the most fun characters I've ever played. This, in a nutshell, it reveals information. This is your spell for exposition. If you want your DM to tell you things, have divination magic, and your DMs will be so happy that you have it, because an awful lot of times as a DM, you make all these intricate things, and no one ever finds out about them because no one digs deep enough. But with divination magic, you're doing things like identify, which honestly is one of the best spells in the game, and it's a ritual, which we'll get to later as to what exactly that means. We get detect magic, comprehend language. You get the divination spell, which literally lets you just put up an eyeball, an invisible eyeball somewhere, and you can just peek in and watch people. Like,
be a creeper.
It's great. I adore divination magic, and if you're a divination wizard,
Arcane
you're
Eye?
really important. Do what?
Is Arcane Eye divination? There's some times where they're just like, this is not one. And I'm like, but
it is divination.
Okay, good. We like that.
Yeah. So Arcane Eye is a little bit different than the divination spell because you can move it, whereas the divination spell, it's like a locked location. But amazing utility uses. Again, a theme you're going to notice with me when I talk about magic specifically, or even classes, I'm a support. I build to support the team. Like, that's just what I enjoy doing. So for me, I look at the support applications oftentimes, and divination is your out of combat support.
Yeah, I'm just noticing now. It's like, hey, he put all the good, like all the support stuff is always on the top. All the boom is at the bottom.
No, they're in alphabetical order.
I know, but I want to say it was because of
the alphabet totally like support.
It's totally the alphabet. No, it's just that's the funny part. Except for like illusion's the only one but even illusion can do damage. So.
But yeah, so if you want to be like a really, really cool out of combat, seer, divination, it's really, really fun, people. It's really fun. Like, and your party is going to love you because everyone does damage, right? Everyone's going to do damage. You're going to have cantrips that you can do damage with. Like, it's okay to not be the biggest damage dealer of the party because, but I almost said because you have to contribute, but I meant to say, as long as you are contributing in other ways. Like, a divination wizard or a divination bard.
Divination wizards are my favorite.
I love a bard version of it, personally. But you are going to get so much bang for your buck outside of combat. Like in combat you might not feel super strong, but you are going to be such a powerhouse outside of combat, and the whole group is going to love you. Trust and believe. Everyone loves a utility caster. They just don't want to play it.
Yeah. That is very true.
The next one is Seraphina's favorite, which is enchantment. I don't like enchantment. I'm going to be real.
Enchantment.
Personally, enchantment's just not for me.
You don't like forcing people to do things against their will?
No, I think that's icky. No, I will tell you up front what my major issue with enchantment magic is that it doesn't matter how good you are at it. People know you've done it, so the moment the effect is over, they hate you.
Yep.
So for me, it just doesn't feel worth it. Because no matter what, they're going to know.
Right. So it really depends, like, if you don't really care about the person or what they're doing, like if you want them to do it, it's like, but it's sometimes better just to do a persuasion roll to get them to do it. And then as a last resort, you're like, well, charm person, or well, suggestion.
Yeah. Like, I'm going to be honest. I don't hardly ever take enchantment. I'll take like suggestion or like command later down the road. Cause that, like, in that situation, you're not using those to be friends with people. You know, you're using, like, those are combat enchantments. But I just feel like so many... I wish there was a saving throw for if they knew you did it. Even if it was a really high one.
I feel like they
really
did
low
this because a lot of... Yeah, I feel like they did this because a lot of people was in older editions were just like, charm them, give me your stuff, give me all your goods, give me that. It's all good now. It's my stuff. I mean... It's like... I feel that there's other workaways around it, because like if you're a shop owner in a place that has a lot of stuff, you're going to have stuff that's, you know, anti-charm so that you don't get fucking fleeced.
Well, here is why I don't think that's the issue, is because it doesn't make it where they have to do what you say. You know, like obviously command a little bit, yes. Suggest... Yeah. You only get one, you know, like it's not going to be that crazy. But like just charm person, it just makes them friendly. So it's like there's nothing that charm person can do that a persuasion check couldn't do.
Right.
You know, so it's like, to me, it's like, why take the risk, or why let them know that you're using magic when if you're wanting to be a charming person, just play an eloquence bard.
Or just be a warlock.
Yeah, just be charming. You don't need magic. My professional opinion is that enchantment's not that strong, and I don't like it. But I'm sure there's people out there who are very good with it. I think Seraphina's been very, very good with it, but I also don't feel like she's been punished. You know what I mean? As much as she could have. So if you have a very nice DM, this is going to be a great school. But if you're in like a really, really hardcore DM, you know, game, they gonna abuse you for using this.
Yeah, if it's not outside combat, or outside combat stuff, to get information. Like, but it does have its uses. Dominate person is also one of my favorite ones. Charm animal is another good one. Charm monster.
I think the thing for this that I'm really realizing is that enchantment, it's not bad. I will take that back. Early level enchantment is bad. Late level enchantment, really good. But early level, real good. It's not fun, early leveling. Because you're going to get all of your spells work against you.
Yeah, also the problem I have with a lot of the enchantments is like charm monster and charm person and those things, is you really need to understand the inner workings of like what are the spell types, what is a monstrosity, what is a monster, what is an animal, like which one's going to work on which, because you're going to take dominate person or dominate monster, you're going to cast it and they're like, it doesn't work because it's not a monster, or it doesn't work because it's not a person, and you're like, that's a real high level spell slot that I just threw at the trash. Thanks.
I will say, enchantment does have two spells that I really, really like in it, though, and that's Bless and Bane. I
Hmm.
will say I like Bless better than I like Bane, for two reasons. The first one is Bless and Bane, they both, you put it on like three people, right? Bless,
Yep.
after you've killed someone, your three people still have it. Bane, once you kill that person, they're not baned anymore because they're dead. You know, so it feels like you
Yeah.
get a bit more bang for your buck out of Bless. Also, this is a topic I've talked about occasionally on the podcast that I feel like it's important to talk about is if your DM is not an honest roller, sometimes Bane can feel not useful because what's the point in giving them a minus D4 on their rolls if your DM is a more thematic DM and wants certain things to happen?
Right.
So Bless over Bane, people. Trust and believe. Unless you're a bard and then you can only get Bane, so get Bane. But they're still great spells.
Bane is fantastic if you are a caster, like a sorcerer and stuff like that. You want that negative D4 to those saving throws.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
The next one is probably the crowd favorite, which is Evocation. It goes boom.
Okay. Echo boom.
I don't know if there's any. I looked. I don't think there's any utility in Evocation. This is pure damage. This is pure elemental and arcane wrath.
Go
Um,
boom.
this is more of Royals side of things.
Yeah.
I usually don't use Evocation at all, because I'm a support. I don't need to, you know. I mean, obviously, if I can take Fireball, I'm gonna do it. But any other spell, I don't really
Right.
need it.
Right. Yeah, evocation, it's your big boy damage pants spells. These are your fireballs. These are your like cone of colds. These are all the good fun spells that we all love.
Hmm.
We like damage and they give us the damage.
Yeah, as a
I don't
support
think
player, I love when people have Evocation. I love an Evocation Wizard or a Sorcerer because if you, as a support, let's move back to enchantment just a little bit, put Bane on a group of enemies, giving them that minus D4, and then your
this.
Evocation Wizard casts Fireball and imposes disadvantage on them. Now they have disadvantage and a minus D4. The odds are they're going to take massive damage from it.
They're gonna pump it up
They,
for a
yeah,
sorcerer.
yes. So, as a support oriented person, be on the lookout for situations where your evocation wizard can lob a fireball and make it worth their while. Because that's a big spell slot, that's a lot of damage. Pump that damage up for them. If you have elemental bane, honey,
Oh
honey,
yeah.
you better slap it on there and let your
Thing.
evocation wizard go to town. I
Just,
will say,
just keep
I
those rooms bigger.
personally, when it comes to evocation, I love when characters will pick one element and just stick with it really hardcore. Like I know it's like a smart the smart thing to do to take a little bit of everything, but God,
Yeah.
I'm a sucker for someone who's like, I do ice magic or I only do fire, and I'm like, yes. Because then I know that everything they do, if I smack an elemental bane down, I know what to put it on because I know what they're gonna be
Yep.
throwing.
Yeah, I usually tend to focus like one element like as their major element, and unless I'm playing the was it Tome Wizard Scribe, where you
Scribe,
can
I
just be like,
love Scribe.
and Scribe's like, hey, that fireball, it cold now.
Yeah. Also,
Yeah.
with these, with evocation specifically, talk to your DMs before you start. If you want to be an ice wizard, but there's not as many ice spells, talk to them. Most of them will let you just change fireball into ice ball. Like, it's just an elemental
Yeah.
shift. Like, it's not a big deal. Work with your DMs. Most of them will let you.
Yeah, like ice knife doesn't need to be ice; it can be a fire knife.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Fine.
move your elements around. But on the scribe wizard, I want to tell you a fun little trick. So,
Mhm.
if you take chromatic orb at the beginning, like at level 1, that's the only spell you need to change every spell in the game to a different
Yep,
element. Oh my god. It's so busted. One spell and
it's
it opens
busted.
everything.
It basically opens everything, and then it's the ridiculousness of like, hey, I don't know about the newer rules, but I know the older one. They're just like, hey, you know what? That's a force ball now, and you're like,
Oh
what's immune to
god.
force?
Oh
What's
god.
immune to force? Nothing. Nothing's immune to force. It is gonna have a force ball. And it's gonna hurt.
Okay, so I want to play a scribe wizard really bad. Fun fact for anyone listening, I love to give out like behind the scenes stuff for our stream. When we were doing playtesting for our characters, I had like 3 characters that were in the running. One of which was a scribe wizard. The other, I think I've already said, was a inquisitive rogue. But the scribe wizard, I was gonna flavor it to do purely psychic damage.
Ooh,
So like when I did fireball, it was just gonna be a wave of psychic energy.
damage.
Juicy. But unfortunately, that character didn't make the cut. Sorry about it. Marway wins. He's
Oh,
number one in
win.
my heart. The next one we have is illusion. I love illusion magic. I don't feel like a lot of people use it very often because the rules are very vague on illusions. But this is deceiving one's mind or senses. These are fun, but again, illusion's never going to be the strongest magic school. I would say if you're doing like infiltration stuff, this is great. If you're doing, again, I feel like this one lines up a lot with divination, where out of combat, illusion is pretty good if you're smart. You have to really play smart and think outside the box to get the biggest bang for your buck on illusion magic. I recently in my in-person game, I've been playing a goblin who is a crap, what am I? I'm a trickery domain cleric mixed with something else. Oh my god, I haven't played this character in like 3 months. But
Oh boy.
essentially, the only thing I have on this character is illusions, right? And it was a lot of fun. It was so much more fun than I thought it was gonna be at the time. Like I'm currently in the process of moving, right? So I made this character so when I left, they would have a good NPC because a lot of them are newer players, and I was like, I'm gonna make it to where if they want to use this NPC, they have to be smart about it. They have to think. Illusion will get you thinking because
Oh yeah.
nothing's real. That it's not an actual thing. You have to be creative with how you use things.
I know with the new illusion, they've added some like summon fey and stuff like that. Like the illusions can like have hit points and um if for like enchantment or no sorry illusion mage like wizards illusion wizards
Real quick, summon Fae is actually conjuration.
I know, but if you look at the wizard for if you go into the wizards actually and go into in
Oh,
illusions, they get specific things that is like conjuration. They
oh
just like
shit.
summon things. Yeah.
Good for them. That's cool. Oh, the illusionist. Yeah. Ooh, that's cool. I can't wait to talk about that. I don't play a whole lot of wizards, so when it comes to like the new set of wizard rules, it's like I've glazed over them, but I don't like know them. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, they gave him some combat stuff so they can do some things with their cool stuff. I really like. I think like Illusion Wizard will be actually really fun to play with the new rules. I think it's one of those ones that it's like I want that on my to-do list, and I'm like, but do I want to play a scribe or an illusion?
Yeah, I want to do a scribe wizard so bad. That's been on my list since like they were released. And it always ends up in the top 3 but never in the top because again, I'm a support, so it's like
Yeah,
it just never meets the top. But yeah, illusions are cool. Illusion magic is
illusions
fun.
can be cool. It can
Um
be real fun.
Next up is necromancy. This is manipulating life and death. This is really fun for a lot of necrotic and cold damage, and it's also really good anti-healing and raising the dead, so you do get some of those meat shields that we were talking about. There is support capability here. If you are like myself and want to be a support necromancer, go for it. Death by life or life by death. Super good, super strong. But just know
False life.
your character is going to be stanky because you smell like death. Sorry about it.
Yeah, people may not look upon you very kindly messing with necrotic forces,
Yeah.
but who cares? You got other friends that you can summon from the grave, so that's
Yeah.
all that's what matters.
Yeah, realistically, as a necromancer, you're just a doctor who got there a little late. Like,
Yeah,
No,
It's
but
fine.
necromancy is great. I think there's a lovely necromancy spell called Chill Touch. It's a cantrip. If you have access to it, get it, because almost every boss that you fight, like Big Bad, is going to have regeneration, and this will stop it. It keeps them from healing. One little cantrip, and it will be the biggest thorn in their side. Trust and believe. Chill Touch is amazing.
Still touch is amazing. And
Firebolt is like always the go-to, cantrip, but I think
mm,
Chill Touch is so much better than.
I I agree. I think Chill Touch is definitely one of my top ones to get. Because of the reduced to healing, because like you never know how annoying it is when then you fight a troll and you're like, does anybody have fire? And they're like, no. And you're like, well, Chill Touch works.
Yeah, that and like we talked a little bit, me and Robin did, about like the resistances when we had a whole episode about, we talked more than a little bit, we had a whole episode about resistances. um and fire is the most resistant damage type in the game. So
Yep.
with that, necrotic is up there. If you're going into an undead like thing, you could run into it a little bit, but I still don't think it's gonna be that bad. Also, I just looked up the new Chill Touch. Were you aware that the 2024 Chill Touch is a touch spell now?
No, I loved
Yes.
it. I could just go from a
It
distance,
is a
stay out
touch
of the way.
spell.
Oh no, I don't know if I like that.
Oh no. Um, but they upped its damage to a D10.
I mean,
But
that's great. I
still,
mean, but still, that's like to get that mitigation for that healing, you have to get up and close and personal with your squishy, probably caster.
so here's a little hack for all of you to get around those dastardly touch spells. And I had this written in for later, but since it's up, we're going to talk about it. There's this really cool first level spell called Find Familiar, right? What you want to do is get an owl. Why an owl, you might ask? Because they have this really cool thing called Flyby where they don't provoke attack of opportunity. What you can do is have your owl fly by, and you can actually cast touch spells through your familiars. So have it fly in, and now every spell you cast has 100-foot range if it's touch.
And for you warlocks out there, there is Eldritch Spear, I believe it is. It gives all touch spells like a 20-foot radius
Is it all? I think you
or
have to
20
pick
foot
one.
reach.
You have to pick one.
Oh, maybe it is.
But
I
yeah,
mean,
you
Chill
can
Touch
still
would be a
pick
great
Chill
one.
Touch. Or even with that, you have the Invocation. You could do Pack of the Chain, and then you get your Familiar anyway. But either of those two
Yep.
options is fantastic. Next up is Transmutation. I'm going to be honest with you. This is... I don't think this is a super used school of magic. This is probably the least used in my opinion. Essentially, you transformed creatures or objects. I mean, once you get to like polymorph, absolutely this is great. But we'll
Mm-hmm.
get a couple things like bark skin and alter self where you can change what you look like outside of just an illusionary version of yourself. You actually alter your like body.
Parents.
Um, you can change the weather.
Yay.
You can make
Yeah,
someone's
the only
skin
person,
stone.
Caleb from Critical Role. That's the only transmutation wizard I've ever seen. When he said he was a transmutation wizard, I was like, no. Yeah.
No, I
You
mean,
did?
at the end of the day, all of the spell schools can do cool stuff, but you're gonna be niche. As a transmutation wizard, you are going to be a very niche wizard. If you specialize purely in transmutation, if you're a wizard, you're not only gonna have transmutation. If you want to kneecap yourself, go for it. I love making my characters weaker for the sake of story. I think it's flavorful, but just know that I don't think transmutation is going to be the biggest bang for your buck, and I think that's why they didn't make the cut into 2024 rules yet. The Transmutation Wizard School.
They were like, how do we make this better? They're like, we don't know. Yeah, transmutation is basically just when I flavor transmutation, I'm just say that my wizard's basically like an alchemist
Mm-hmm.
because that's what they are trying to do. They're trying to create like the alchemist stone, try to transmute one thing into another thing and keep it permanently. And that's how I kind of flavor them. So for those people, like if you like an alchemy kind of a thing, that's definitely something you can do.
Yeah. So those are all of the schools with a pretty good. That was a way more in-depth conversation than I thought we were going to have about them. So the next thing we're going to talk about is the thing I'm dreading, because even in this exact
The
moment,
reason why we
I don't like talking about how it works because they're hard. But we're going to talk about spell slots and how they work. So I'm going to read, for anyone who has the player handbook, I'm going to read what they tell you it is, and then I'm going to kind of explain why I don't like the way that they're explaining it. So spellcasting is spellcasting is taxing. So a spellcaster can cast only a limited number of level 1 plus spells before resting. Spell slots are the main way spellcasters' magical potential is represented. Each spellcasting class is giving its members a limited number of spell slots of certain spell level. For example, a level 3 wizard has 4 first level spells slots and 2 first level spell slots. I just said that in reverse. Four first level and 2 second level. When you cast a spell, you expend a spell slot that spells level or higher, efficiently filling the spell slot with the spell. Imagine a spell like a groove of a certain size, small for a level 1 and larger for higher level. A first level spell fits into a first level spell groove and can go into any groove higher, but a second level cannot go into a first because it is too big. I veered away from what they were the reading because it gets a little weird. But essentially, I like the groove thing. I think that was smart. Almost imagine like you have these like these spheres that are getting bigger, right? A first level one, almost like a basketball, right? A basketball hoop. You get your first level basketball, which is small, and like just like the little cute little inflatable ones that can go in the tiny hoop. And then as you get bigger spells, you have to have a bigger hoop to put them through. And whenever it goes through it, that hoop can't be used anymore. So for first level, we start generally with 3 of our spell slots, so we can put 3 of these spells into those slots. Once we get our second level, we can do 3 first level spells and 2 second level spells. And again, we can do first level as both first and second, but second level can only be second and above. So you can only go up in like power. You cannot shove it into a smaller spell slot.
Yeah, you can't weaken a spell.
Too bad, though. Can you imagine like a first level fireball? It's just like 64. Just 64 damage. I would be so into that.
It's just only 64. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, instead of 68, you're going down 2 spell levels. Take it down 2 dice. I'm here for it. So I mean, it makes sense. Spell slots are one of those things that once you get it, they make sense. Once you get it, you got it. But like first trying to get them can be a little confusing. Getting it by just reading and hearing about it is not practical. You have to get in there. You have to play. Because playing spell slots is what will teach you how they work. So after you've used up all your spell slots, you have to do a long rest to get them back. Unless you're a warlock, but we'll talk about that at a later time.
Unless you're a warlock. Or a sorcerer.
Or a wizard.
Oh yeah, arcane recovery.
They all get.
So
everyone gets a couple spell slots, but to get all of them back, you have to do a long rest. Unless you're a warlock.
Unless you're a warlock.
So that's I think that's is that a good explanation of spell slots? I don't know.
Yeah, just think of spell slots as your magic reserve, and you have only a limited amount of magic reserve, and the little spell slots are your little grooves of what you got to fill up the groove to be able to use it. And if it doesn't all the way, like, yeah, that works.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. If you have further questions about spell slots, feel free to jump into our Discord channel. We will have the links pretty much everywhere. And head on over to the IntModPod little tab, and you can feel free to ask any questions you have, and I will try to be a bit more specific with it.
Right. It's just really hard because each class is different with their spell slots, so or how they get some of them. I
Kind
know
of,
with the
yeah.
newer rules they try to flatline it because Wizard was like it's based off your intelligence and all this other stuff, and then other classes were like you just get this. That's all.
Yeah, I
And
mean, acquiring spells has always been different between all of them, but spell slots in general have always
mhm.
been the same, except for warlocks. Um, and we'll go over how everyone's getting their spells once we get to their classes. So be ready
Yep.
for that. We're gonna teach you how you can learn spells. Um,
Yeah.
but
So
along,
just
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, just remember grooves for your spell slots, and then what is a spell slot other than your arcane reserves, or
Mm-hmm.
your magical reserves.
Another glorious thing we have are spell scrolls. These are amazing. The rules on these vary depending on DM. It doesn't matter what the book says, DMs do what they want, and this is probably the one that really gets the most like variation. Spell scrolls, I believe, rules as written, anyone can use it. You don't have to be a
Yes.
caster to use a spell scroll. Some DMs say you have to have magical knowledge to cast it. Some DMs even say you have to know the spell in the spell scroll to cast it. I think that's ridiculous because in the new rules, they allow you to create spell scrolls, and to do it, you have to spend the spell slot. So you're essentially putting the spell in the scroll. So with that,
Right.
you should be able to just like spell scroll, boom, there we go.
Mhm.
Spell scrolls are great. If you're a scribe wizard, bitch, you better be scribe. Like, play as an
You better be
elf.
driving,
Here's what
yeah.
you're doing. You're gonna play as an elf, so you only have to sleep 4 hours. The other 4 hours, you're gonna be making spell scrolls for your team. Period. That's what you're gonna do. If you want to take it a step further, play as a warlock, because then you can pour your 2 spell slots into it, and then just take an hour
Take a
long
short
rest
rest.
and get them back, or an hour short rest and get them back.
Yeah. Spell
Abuse spell
scrolls.
scrolls.
Yeah, if you can. They are definitely one of those things. It's always good to have a few scrolls, whether it be cure wounds or just a thing. It's just, and also just use them. Like, I know sometimes you're like, I'm gonna save this scroll forever for that one occasion that's gonna come by. You're like, just if it's gonna be useful, just use it.
Yeah.
You can always get more. They are expensive, but hell, just use it. Or else you're just gonna have that level 1 firebolt spell that you've had since the beginning, and you'll never use it.
My biggest tip for using spell scrolls effectively is if you are the healer of the group, learn how to use the inscription tool so you can make spell scrolls. Put a revivify on a spell scroll in case you as the healer die. It happens, and then you're the only one with revivify. Make sure you have portable revivifies. It will save you a
Yeah.
world of trouble. That's my pro tip. Aside from play an elf and write spell scrolls all night.
Just right through the night.
Yes. So the next thing we're going to talk about is ritual spells. Rituals are like my favorite thing on the planet because they are spells that don't require spell slots. Now, the caveat to that is each spell will have like an R next to it if it is a ritual spell, right? It will tell you this is a ritual spell. It's not like any spell, it is specific spells. But it adds, when you cast it as a ritual, it adds 10 minutes to whatever the cast time is. Unless you're a scribe wizard. But yeah, so rituals are great. They're so good. I feel like find familiar, identified. What else is there?
Detect magic.
I don't think detect magic is a
Ritual?
ritual
Yeah, it is.
anymore. Not in the new one.
Oh, is it not anymore?
Yeah, they
Oh, that's
snatched its
terrible.
ritual title. So if you're playing in 2014,
Oh,
use the 2014 one. It's the same spell, but
yeah,
you can
he's
do
a
it as a
24
ritual.
days. You can just do it as a ritual, and we like rituals.
Yeah, we do. They're great.
Nice.
They're specifically made for out of combat, though. You know, because 10 minutes
Yes.
in combat is gonna be like what 60 turns, something like that.
Yep. Yep.
And you don't need to be
61
sitting
turns
there
if
for
it's like
60 turns trying to do
Yeah.
something. One thing I want to go back to spell slots real quick, just because this kind of like not really spell slots, but Since spell slots generally are like kind of what we think about for in combat casting, because otherwise you're probably going to try to do a ritual if it's appropriate. You can only cast one leveled spell per turn, period. If
Correct.
you're a sorcerer and you have quicken magic, all that does is make your full cast or your full action spell a bonus action. That doesn't mean you can cast a full action spell and then turn another one into a bonus action and cast it. That's not how it works. You can only do one leveled spell unless you cross class into fighter and get action surge.
So you get another action, yeah.
Because it specifically says it pushes you beyond your normal limits. And again, even that one is like the rules. It says it works, but talk to your DM. Make sure before you take a 2-level dip into fighter.
I will also say, thing on spell scrolls, there is a DC for casting spells that are higher beyond your capability, so there's a chance of failure also with casting spells beyond your limit. So if you're a level 1 person with a fireball on you, there's a chance that fireball ain't gonna work when you cast it, because there is DC save or casting higher level spells. And sometimes there are DMs that will even do it for even spells that you should be able to cast. I don't do that because I'm like, that's the magic you can perform. You should be able to do it. But I know that there are DMs that say, like, to use a scroll, you have to. Or unless you're a rogue, because that used to be a niche thing back in the older editions where rogues were like the only people that could use magical equipment and scrolls effectively for reasons.
Yeah. I feel like this is where like there is new DCs that they've added. I was trying to find it real quick for us. But that right there is where I would put, obviously, like you were saying, if you can cast the spell, there's not going to be a DC for this. I feel like if you're, of level to cast it, but it's not a spell, I might do like a DC 10 or something, like something super easy.
Yeah, something small.
But like if you're a fighter, I feel like that's when those Arcana checks are really gonna matter, because you're not just sending lightning out of your fingers all the time. This is probably not a experience you're used to.
Yeah.
Now with these spells, we do occasionally get components that we have to fulfill to do them. Now, there are 3 different kinds of components. There's verbal, somatic, and material. So verbal means you have to be able to speak. Now, with this, it is important to remember as a spellcaster that you cannot whisper a spell unless you are, I believe it's illusion wizard or arcane trickster rogue. Those are the only, or a sorcerer using a meta magic. So if you're just regular everyday spellcaster and you're trying to cast a spell, you have to say it at a normal voice range, like the period. That's what it is. There is no, I want to cast this, but I want to whisper it. No, because that's literally features of other classes.
Yeah, you can't whisper spells. You can try to disguise it by making other noises or something like that. Or like obviously if it has somatic, you can't do that. But if maybe your friend can do it for you, like make a distraction, talk loudly, do other things. But like magic casting is very it's very apparent.
Obvious,
like you're gonna be doing hand gestures. You're gonna be doing like Doctor Strange stuff, going casting, doing hand signatures. You're gonna be doing all that nonsense, and some people are just gonna be like, the fuck you doing, buddy? If you're trying to cast right on top of them.
Why the fuck your eyes glowing right now? Feeling a little insecure. Yeah, verbal, you're not whispering it. I think if you have a nice DM, you might be able to convince them to let you like try it with a stealth roll. But again, you are saying this at a normal vocal range. So if you have like a gag in your mouth, like someone taped your mouth or something, you cannot cast spells if they require a verbal component unless you are a sorcerer. Because I think even the illusionist and the arcane trickster still have to be able to say it. They might be able to remove it. We'll go over it once we get to those classes more specifically.
Yeah, I know sorcerer very well. Subtle spell just removes verbal.
Somatic. This is hand gestures. Again, if your hands are tied up, you're not doing this. If you being sneaky, it's not happening for you. This is not like, can I tuck my hand behind my
You
back and
can't.
do like the little.
Yeah. Instead of doing like little, you're like little circles.
Yeah, no. This is like
No.
you have to do the spell the way it wants to be cast. Otherwise, you're not casting the spell. Um. So yeah. With that, just know if it requires somatic and verbal, you cannot be sneaky about those. If, however, you are tiny and you have a big ass orc barbarian or Goliath or a big ass race, get behind them, because your hands can go behind someone. You still have to do the action, but they're not going to see you. So if you want to be sneaky, that's how you do it.
All inconspicuous.
Oh. The next thing is material components. Now these ones are a DM kind of preference kind of thing. I don't use material components like at all, period. I don't even use the diamond for Revivify personally. But the way the official rules work is that you either have to have the material component or have a spell focus that you were using to cast the spell. Certain spells, like Revivify, cost a diamond. You have to have that as rules is written. But again, talk to your DM because it consumes it. If the spell consumes, it'll specifically says consumes this item. You have to have it, rules is written. But then we get to spells like Identify, where it says like it has a pearl worth like 100 gold or something. I think that's what it is. It doesn't say it consumes the pearl. So if you have a focus, you don't have to have that pearl, even like rules is written. For me, I don't like having either of them. But for flavor purposes, feel free to have all these items. It's super fun to actually have these items. Like, I love the imagery, like with my divination bard that I was telling you about. He was very like tribalesque and very ritualistic. And to do his identify spell, he would literally hold the pearl up to his eye and like see through it, was the way he did his identify. And he had like all these braids and dreads that he had like all of his trinkets in. So it's just like a pearl hanging from his hair that he would just pick up and look through. Super
just
fun.
like a monocle.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain spells. It's really weird for material components because some of them are like, you need to have a gold statue made of at least 1,000 gold, and you're like, I could just carry that around with me, no problem. Okay, you're like, you gotta dig through your backpack, pull that out. But I feel like there are some that do require it, like Hero's Feast. I, as a DM, might say like, yeah, you do need to have that because Hero's Feast is such a big plus. You need to have that food platter. I think it's worth like a gold or some nonsense. But it's a great spell. And there are other.
Well, no, that one rules is written. You have to have it. It's a gem-encrusted bowl worth 1,000 gold, which the spell consumes. It specifically states that it consumes this bowl. Jesus.
Yep. Hero's Feast is great, but I don't know if it's 1,000. Sometimes 1,000 gold. Great.
No, I wouldn't pay 1,000 gold for that. I would rather like. This is my bougie ass. I would rather buy like a carriage and some horses so my character doesn't have to walk around everywhere.
The saving throws. But yeah. So it really just depends on, some things are easier to come by, some things aren't. There are material components, some of them are going to be really freaking awkward to get. Also, here's one that everybody always forgets. Summon demon, kids. You can't just summon a demon. You have to have the blood of someone you murdered within the past 24 hours.
Oh my god. Is that real? I've never looked that up.
Yeah. It is. You have to have the blood of someone that was killed within the last 24 hours.
A vial of blood from a human killed within the past 24 hours. Honey.
So, if your DM's going to do it, like, that's a great spell. Cool. It's awesome. It does also have its backlashes, but if they're going to do material components, No, you got to be killing somebody.
Yeah, I mean, summon fiend, the fiendish spirit, a human blood inside a ruby vial worth at least 600 gold. Jesus, why are we killing so? Well, I mean, if you're summoning demons, odds are you're not
Yeah,
behind
yeah,
with the
on
people.
par. Correct.
I mean, yeah, and then summon undead, you have to have a gilded skull worth 300 gold. However, I would like to point out that, um, actually, you don't have to have those because it doesn't consume it. But if you don't have access to a spell focus, then you can get these items and do it anyway. So if you're like, the way I like to imagine using like without a spell focus is if your characters are in jail, right? You've been captured and you don't have access to your spell focus. This is an easy way for you to kill one of your inmates, your friend inmates, take their blood,
Yeah.
and summon
Summon
a
a demon.
giant demon to kill all of the people who captured you.
Yeah, to get yourself out of jail. Bust out of jail
Excellent.
with a demon.
Yeah, and I mean,
Yes.
realistically, if you've got the spell slots for it, you can just keep using blood. Just carry that body around. If you want to be real gross, after your 24 hours, revivify it and kill it again.
Just do it again.
This is our demon body.
Poor guy. This is Jim. He's just here to summon demons. Hi, I'm Jim.
Oh, he's just the blood sack. Oh, gross. Next up we have distances. So we're gonna get into like the different distances. So we have range spells, touch spells, and self spells are the three things. So range we're gonna kind of get into in a little bit because we're gonna go over each of the different kinds of ranges. But touch, again, you have to touch them. This isn't like
The touch.
I want to think about touching wink. No, this is you have to touch this person. However, as we explained, find familiar, you can proxy your touch prerequisite through them. Sorcerers with distant spell, you can do the same. Warlocks, you have invocations to get out of it being a touch spell. There are ways to get around touch, but for the most part, it is going to be very, like, you have to touch. I would always recommend if you're a spellcaster getting that familiar because being able to stay at a distance and use touch spells, super good.
Yeah, you might want to say that touch is very hands-on.
It is a very hands-on style of casting for sure. Self, it just works on yourself. There are so many self spells that I wish I could change into like giving it to someone else. Like, can you imagine the shield spell if you could like cast it on someone else? I would love that. I would eat that up. I wish there was like a feat that gives you that.
Shift it.
I would spend a whole ass feat to be able to do that. Not for shield specifically, but like certain. Maybe like, you know those feats where it's like you get 3 spells that it like augments? Like I would do that, or even 2. I would do 2 spells. I would spend a whole feat for that.
Yeah, I think the only one that can actually give like a kind of shield, I think, is one of the blessings of the gem dragons. They can like give a shield to somebody as a reaction.
Yeah. It's like you grow spectral wings or something. And then like the new abjuration wizard gets shields that they can pass out as well. We love that. But yeah, self spells, it's only working on yourself. But now range. So there are a couple different ranges. Some of them I like, some of them I think are stupid and pointless, but we're going to get into it anyway. So the first one in alphabetical order is going to be a cone. And for anyone following this with the player's handbook, you can find this cute little chart being taught on a blackboard by a cute little gnome on page 238. And it kind of gives a visual about what we're saying. But a cone, it's an area of effect that extends in a straight line from a point of origin in a direction of its creator's choosing. So with this, everything in that cone is getting hit. So that not like, if it's just a straight line, it hits the first person. Everything, even things behind it, are getting hit. I don't see this a whole lot in spells, but if you're playing as a Dragonborn, I think it's the blue Dragonborn with the lightning. I think you can choose actually now with the new Dragonborn. You can choose if it's a cone or a...
Yeah. Because line was very situational and cone was always better.
Yeah. So yeah, this is hitting everything. Super good, nice little AoE. It spreads out. So For example, a cone of 15 feet wide is going to be 15 feet from the person and then 15 feet across. So it's going to slowly get bigger as it goes out. Dragonborns, your bread and butter right here.
Yeah, you can also become a Dragonborn with the spell Breathe Dragon Breath. I think is one of the
I think it's
spells that
just
you can
Dragon
get
Breath,
now.
yeah.
Yeah, you could be a Dragonborn, or you could have my favorite spell, which is Cone of Cold.
Yeah.
I love Cone of Cold.
Next is a cube. Now this one, it's a cube. So the battlefield, this one's easy because like I feel like circles are really hard to explain in D&D because it's a
Yeah,
square
yeah.
map. But it literally, if it's a 15-foot cube, you're gonna be standing here, and right in front of you is where that cube is gonna start. Right? It's not gonna be like you're in the cube. It's not gonna be 5 feet away from you. It is like where you are. It beams out there. So if it's a 10-foot cube, it's going to be the 2 squares on either side of you and then 2 squares back to create a cube that is 10 feet across both ways.
We love cubes.
We
Slow.
do. I think, is
Favorite.
Thunderwave a cube?
No, Thunderwave is, I believe. I haven't had Thunderwave. No, I think it's Thunder
It's been
Step.
a minute since I've used it. It is a cube. Huh.
Yeah, sorry, it is. You're right. I was thinking Thunderstep, so that was
No,
my bad. I like
sometimes I know things off the top of my head, and then I don't know that I actually know it. It's just a really good guess. That was one of those moments.
Yeah, cubes are good. They have slow. I love slow, fairy fire. Those are also great cube spells. We love those ones.
Well, yeah. So next up we have a cylinder. So this is essentially just going to be a straight line that is more than like a 5-foot diameter. So this is going to be bigger. So if it's like a 20-foot cylinder and you blast it out in front of you, is that how? No, I lied to you all. This is only up and down. They only let you do up and down on this one. The way they have it
like
drawn on the image that I sent. Oh no, it is that way. It's the line I was thinking about. Again, people, you don't have to know everything, just enough to sound dangerous. Yeah, so it's just gonna go up and down. This is gonna be like a circle that goes upward. Moonbeam.
Moonbeam, Magic Circle, Flame Strike. These are the ones that do these things.
If you're a druid, get Moonbeam. It's so much fun to roast your friends with.
Yeah.
Trust and believe. Mainly because they're going to be the ones walking into it, so you can't even be blamed for it. You can just sit back and be like, oops. But yeah, cylinders are great. This is going to be like, usually with cylinders, it's a set it and forget it kind of thing. Normally it's going to be there for a little bit. It's not going to be something that's just like, boop, and then gone. Because I feel like normally that's just what a cube would be. Yeah. But a cylinder is going to sit there for a minute.
Yes. Usually.
Next one is emanation. I'm so glad they added this. The AoE is coming directly from your character. So if it's a 5-foot emanation, like the holy, what is that cantrip?
It's the one I have
holy
on
word,
Zada.
holy voice.
Yeah, holy word.
Holy word.
Holy word.
5-foot emanation means every square within 5
A radiant
feet
word.
Of you. Radiant word. We knew we'd get there eventually. Every square around you is going to get hit by that. If it's a 10-foot, it's going to be 2 squares outside of you, but it's going to be from you. I'm glad they added emanation as a thing, because before people would have used like sphere.
Yeah.
It'd be like a sphere originating from you, and people are like, but like, can I put my hand over here? And like, now it's originating from that hand. It's like, no, you can't do that.
I don't know. It comes from within and goes out in the core. Inside. Comes from inside.
The next one is a line. This is the easiest one. This is what I was trying to explain with a cylinder earlier. It's just a straight line.
Straight line.
It can be bigger. It can be smaller. But it's going to start from a point of origin that will be described in the spell specifically. And it's just going to keep going. So generally with these, it will either stop at the first thing hit or continue. The spell itself will tell you which of those two it's doing. But a line, again, just a straight line. We're in a square grid, so that's pretty easy to do. It's either going to be straight on the corners or straight on the flats.
Yep, that's your Eldritch Blast and Lightning Bolts.
The next one, sphere. I I don't understand why sphere needs to. Well, I guess I don't know. Sphere, we're on a square map. Why is this not just part of square?
Uh, I would personally, I would put it in just a square, but just be like, it's a fireball. Obviously, it's going to be a circle, but it fills the whole of these squares. That's what it's going to do. Yeah,
Yeah, I
putting
mean,
particular objects in square grids. It gets really confusing. It's always really awkward. And then it's like, does it fit all the way into that? It's
yeah.
not all the way in there. It's like,
Spheres should be cubes. I feel like though the way they describe cube is it's like it has to be originating from you, and sphere is like if you're using fairy fire or something that's not on you. So it's like a point of choice versus a point of your hand.
correct.
But
It's
still,
weird,
I don't like it.
but still, we don't like it.
Next up, we're going to talk about the duration of spells and how that works. So we want to talk about concentration. This is going to be the bane of every cleric who's trying to rush with spiritual weapons or spirit guardians. The bane of their
Spirit Guardians.
existence. If you're trying to be a lawnmower and just plow through everyone, and someone hits you while you have a concentration spell up, so any of these spells, it's going to have a C next to the actual spell, so it will tell you that it's concentration. If you get hit while concentrating on a spell, you have to make a DC 10 concentration check, which is essentially just a constitution check because you get to add your con to it. Generally, you should be fine, but if you get a 9 or below, you lose the concentration of that spell. So, concentration spells last until concentration is broke or until the spell itself's time is up. So, most of them are like a minute. I don't think there's any concentration spells that are an hour. There might be one or two, but I mean, Hunter's Mark.
Visibility.
So yeah, so you just don't want to get hit while concentrating, and if you do, you want to make sure that you're saving those con checks. So for anyone who remembers when I said con should never be below your third highest ability, this is why, especially for our casters. You know, don't think you're a glass cannon so you don't need con. No, you need it so you can concentrate. Also, with that, you cannot cast another concentration spell while the first one is active, or it will get rid of the first one. So you can still cast, just not concentration spells. I think is a big misconception that people think you just can't cast spells, but you can.
Yeah, and you can still cast your other spell. You just can't only concentrate spell at a time, with rare exceptions.
Also, you can end your concentration at any time, no action required, even if it's not on your turn. So, say, let's go back to Moonbeam. Say you're fighting people and one of your allies steps into the Moonbeam, right? The moment they enter that Moonbeam, if you so choose, you can deactivate it so they don't take the damage. But you lose that spell and the spell slot is gone. So I say let them roast. But, if they're stupid enough to get in your AoEs. But I mean, there are other occasions where you just might want to let go of your concentration of something. Maybe, I don't know. Polymorph. I can't think of anything off the top of my head.
Polymorph's the only one I can think of. Like, there are times where you're just like, you gotta drop that polymorph whenever you need to. Something bad's about to happen, something's about to go down, or for whatever reason, you can just drop that polymorph.
Now, if you become incapacitated or dead, because fun fact, you cannot concentrate on a spell while you're dead, the spell does end. So if you get put to sleep, if you get put to sleep, if you get turned into stone, like anything that gives you the incapacitated condition that we talked about back a couple weeks ago with Robin, that's going to end your concentration. Also, with the damage, they now have a DC 10 or half the damage taken rounded down up to a maximum of DC of 30. So if you get hit by something and you take 60 damage, you will have to roll a 30 to maintain that. If you get hit by, 25 damage, Right there, we're going to half that to it's around 12, and we round down because we didn't quite get to that 13. So it's going to be a 12 instead of a 10. Um, I will be honest. I feel like most DMs don't feel like doing the math on that, and they'll just tell you to do the 10. I don't think I've ever
It
had to
really
make a con.
depends.
I've never had to make a con above
Yeah,
10.
I do this in case, like, when I DM'd, I'm like, big hit, it's gonna be really hard. But I was also gonna say for like incapacitated, that is why Mind Spike is one of my favorite spells.
I just lost your sound there for a second.
Oh, I was gonna say incapacitate is like a really good one. That's why I like Mind Spike, because it does incapacitate people for a turn.
Oh my god, that's incredible.
Why it's one of my favorite spells.
Mm-hmm. So also with that, there are several feats that you can get that can help you with this. If you're like Morrowind and you have a lot of summoning, almost all summoning spells are concentration. Warcaster is going to give you that bonus to concentration. If you're a warlock, Eldritch Mind, I think, gives you advantage on concentration checks. But also, after you get that, there's a beautiful little thing called resilient, or is it durable? I think it's resilient, where you pick a ability score and you have like you pick a saving throw and you gain proficiency in it, and you gain or no, it's just proficiency. So that way, if you take Warcaster or Eldritch Mind plus Resilient, now you're getting advantage and you have proficiency if you didn't already have it. So super nice. Don't lose concentration on spells. It's not needed. You can keep your brain active.
You can keep your brain active. It kind of sucks though when you get hit by that little goblin that just walked by because you're like, it's a goblin, it can't hit me. Fail save. Nat 1. There goes your big concentration spell.
Mm-hmm. Over like 1 damage.
Yeah, you're like,
And so that's how like spells that last a long time work. Also, we have instantaneous spells, and that literally it appears for a moment and then it's gone. So this is the majority of your spells. If you think fireball, if you think any damage, like any like shoot it and hit kind of spell, that's what it is. It just boom, there it is. Now it's gone. So with that, also, with us talking about effects over time, and we've talked about bless a lot. The effects don't stack in Dungeons and Dragons. So if 2 people on your party have bless and they both cast it on the same person, they're still only getting 1 bless. If you have effects that do similar things, those do stack. But like the same spell is gonna be a no-go. Like if I give bless to Zada and someone else gives him resistance and gives him the extra d4, he's gonna get 2d4 added on, but you can't do 2 people with resistance or 2 people with bless. So it's important to remember that they don't stack. So talk with your group about what spells they're bringing so you don't end up with 5 people with bless, because you can't all use it anyway.
Yeah, at least I mean, if you're gonna be dungeon crawling, at least everybody can do bless at 1 combat, I guess. But yeah, it's usually good to diversify.
Mm-hmm. And the last thing we're going to talk about with magic is how to hit people with magic. So there's 2 different ways. There is to hit, which is just like any weapon or attack where we're going to do a d20 test and add proficiency bonus to it and your spellcasting modifier. So your spellcasting modifier will be based on what class you pick. So we'll go into the like specifically once we get into classes, what classes have what. But so you're going to add your proficiency, your spellcasting modifier to it, and if it hits their AC, you hit. The other one is saving throws. So this, you make someone make a saving throw or they get hit. Out of those 2, which one would you rather have as a spell?
Now with Sorcerer having their new like Super Saiyan form, probably to hit because you get the advantage. But I do love me some good saving throws because it's just nice to just not have to worry about me rolling. It's like, DM, do it for me.
See, I
And
like to hit so much better because I feel like I don't know. I think it feels more in control, and I also feel like ACs are usually easier to hit versus relying on someone's DC to fail.
yeah.
Um,
But I really like banishment because no one has charisma.
yeah. I think if you're gonna rely heavily on saving throws, you need to familiarize yourself and do your best not to metagame with this. Like, obviously, if you're looking at like a kobold or a goblin, you know off the top of your head they're not gonna be the wisest person. So it's not really metagaming to be like, oh, I need a wisdom saving throw for this idiot of an enemy. But you walk in and you see something moving really slow. You can pretty much tell just by their speed that their dex might not be the best. So your dexterity saving throws are going to be really good. So if you play a saving throw game, you really want to make sure that one, your spell save DC is high. Automatically,
Hmm.
you want to make sure that that's a thing. The
Get to
other
the 20 as
thing,
fast as possible.
yeah, the other thing you want to do is make sure you have different saving throws for different spells. You want an intelligence saving throw for one of your spells because that intelligence saving throws are deadly. They're terrifying, and nothing has good intelligence. You're gonna want or a charisma one, and
Yep.
I feel like wisdom is a good one. Dex is the worst saving throw. You do not
Yeah.
want all of your saving throw spells to be Dex.
But he's got pretty good decks usually.
Yeah, Dex is the easiest thing for monsters to usually get around behind like strength. And con is usually up there too. But any of the mental ones, unless you're fighting wizards, you should be pretty good getting them on one of the mental skills versus the physical skills.
Yes, I agree with that. Yeah, again, like I said, Mind Spike is one of my favorite spells that they added.
Yeah. Also, there are magic items out there that can raise your spell save DC. Hunt them down, find them, tell your DM you want them. If you're a druid, Moon Scepter or Moon Sickle, I'm sorry. I know it's mainly for healers because it gives you an extra D4 to your healing, but it also raises your spell save DC by 1. Or if you get a higher ranking one, it can go all the way up to +3. Super good, super strong.
The Wand of the Warcaster or something like that
Yeah.
gives you DCs. Old casty wasty people.
All right, so that's going to be it for us today on magic and how it works. If you have any further questions, again, head over to our Discord and feel free to ask away. Or if you go over to the Reddit r/IntModPod, all one word, feel free to ask questions there as well. And thank you, Royal, for coming back again for us. We're going to have to get you like,
Oh,
I have my little
I'm an
Professor
unofficial
Bobby right here. I need
co-host.
like
Yeah.
assistant Professor Royal.
There you go. Yeah, I'll be here whenever you need me. Talk
All
about
right,
the
well,
rules. Like I said, I don't know everything, but I know stuff.
yeah. Well, until next time, may all of your intelligence checks be high, and we will see you next time when we talk about what am I talking about next week with Kara? Social encounters. We're gonna talk about social encounters
There
and
you
how to
go.
navigate them. All right, until next time. Bye.